Greetings, friends. Welcome to my channel. So, a possible assassination attempt on Putin. The first night without Shahed strikes. Also, what to expect at the front, and a huge number of robotic systems working at the front that will be deployed throughout this year. Also, what Trump's personal spiritual advisor Burns said while visiting Ukraine and why he believes we need to supply F-35s. And a huge number of ATACMS missiles. About this and more in my traditional morning briefing on the channel, about what I consider important and worthy of your attention, dear viewers. So, I'll start with the fact that indeed on the night of March 31st to April 1st, there were no recorded launches of Shahed-type drones from Russian territory towards Ukraine, but here, I think we shouldn't draw premature conclusions, despite the relatively calm night for most of Ukraine's rear cities. Still, it is worth noting here that the launches of Shaheds could have been influenced, firstly by weather conditions, and secondly by the fact that Russia needs time for accumulation, reformatting, creating additional launch sites, or changing them. The fact is that the enemy changes these launch sites from time to time because, well, it should be understood here that they are occasionally targeted by Ukrainian forces. For example, the air forces of the armed forces of Ukraine recently struck one of the drone launch points in the Bryansk region, and not only there. So they need to regroup a bit in order to, once again, have a chance. So, I think the enemy has finally abandoned this tactic. They can only increase their efforts because in this way, they think they can pressure Ukraine and play on the demoralization of society. Moreover, in fact, to exert pressure, including expecting concessions from the USA, from Ukraine, and waiting for Trump, the president of the USA, to start pressuring Ukraine instead of Russia. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, the president of the USA, noted that he set a psychological deadline for Putin during which the Russian dictator must essentially agree to a final ceasefire deal. What a psychological deadline is and how it is accounted for or determined, the American leader did not specify. And here one can only speculate and, essentially guess there what's going on. But the fact remains that previously the US president also mentioned that he considers imposing sanctions and corresponding tariffs against Russia, especially against Russian oil. But the American president also does not forget to remind about the agreement on rare earth metals, the signing of which he awaits with Ukraine. In the meantime, for example, the Russian special representative at the negotiations, Kirill Dmitriev, gave an interview to the publication Izvestia, in which he notes that Russia is ready to talk with the United States of America about concluding an agreement on rare earth metals and their joint development. Why does the Kremlin need this? The Kremlin needs this to divert attention from Ukraine and to say, look, while Ukraine is contemplating, while the Ukrainian government is considering, while proposals are being made by Ukraine, this is normal. And it is normal when we receive a document, a proposal in any international law or in public law, in relations between states or between private individuals, legal corporations. It is normal when a draft document is studied. There is an opportunity to make your own proposals, recommendations, certain points, and only then proceed to the possibility of directly concluding and signing the final version of the document. At this time, Russia is offering and essentially imposing conditions saying, look, we have rare earth metals, let's extract them together. Yes, on one hand, Russia is interested in actually getting money because they are suffering. No matter how you look at it, the economy is suffering due to sanctions and they need to invest. They would like to have processing as well. They would also like to develop the relevant deposits. However, what does Russia plan to invest in? It plans to invest in the Arctic. And in the Arctic, if we look currently consistently, the position of the USA, that is, despite all the statements, regardless of everything concerning the Arctic, there is a position that American presence needs to be increased there. This is exactly what the current US activity is aimed at. Let's look at what is happening and the talks about the annexation of Greenland, what the President of the United States, Trump, is saying, that now troops in any case to Greenland, as Trump explained in his video. Essentially, the issue of Greenland, he highlighted it in such a way that it is necessary to defend and counteract Russian and Chinese influences. Since China has become a near-Arctic state, and together with Russia, they are trying to implement a number of projects in the Arctic Ocean, including the Northern Sea Route, extraction and joint development of natural resources and minerals, as well as military infrastructure, military bases, military facilities directly in the Northern Arctic. This is a bit what the current activities of Russia and China are focused on, and American and Russian interests clearly do not intersect here. Therefore, what Dmitriev is talking about is aimed at the media sphere, providing informational content to try to discredit Ukraine as a partner, plus stating that supposedly Russia has significantly more of such minerals and natural resources. And then try to actually pressure the United States by saying, let's work with us, forget about Ukraine, claiming that Ukraine is an unreliable partner, and so on. This is how this informational campaign and provocation should be perceived. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense here. And in the meantime, a personal spiritual advisor visited Ukraine. Trump's advisor, Market Burns, there is various information regarding the piety and religiosity of the American president. There are certain sources that indicate that Trump has become an extremely religious person. We see that there are joint prayers in the White House, but there is another point of view that in fact all of this is used, let's say, as an image, as a cover to directly attract a significant number of conservative voters. After all, it is important to understand that Christianity has a significant influence in the USA, more so than in Europe. This needs to be understood now, especially Protestantism has. And indeed, there are many believers and American politicians, many of those who truly demonstrate examples of Christian faith. We would like to see more of them, because after all, how can we not renew within ourselves the promises of Christianity, the forces of light, the blessings of God our Lord, against these forces of the devil and against, in fact, the minions of Satan, the Kremlin regime. Here, of course, it would be good to renew all of this. Mark Burns visited, and he said that during his visit, he went to Bucha, Irpin, Borodyanka, and he was impressed. And in fact, he mentioned that Burns wrote on the X network that Ukrainians thank the US for their support. The soldiers on the front line are not asking for money. They are asking for 1,000 tanks, 300 F-35s, anti-aircraft systems to destroy drones.